Welcome to Packmates, a podcast about Magic the Gathering Limited, where we take a deep dive in the current limited format. The Packmates are a group of friendly card charts that like going to F&M, hanging out, and getting them wins. Don't forget to check out our Discord and other social media. Links are in the description. Please like and subscribe. All that stuff helps a ton. I'm Ryan, your resident aggro expert.
And I'm Joel, your resident combo expert.
And we are the
We're
Packmates.
Packmates.
All right. First up, we are going to talk about Joel's amazing 7-0 Rakdos trophy deck.
Yeah, no, black probably isn't where you want to be in this format, but if you're going to be in black, having something like 12 removal spells tends to help a little bit. You know, a couple extract confessions, 3 long goodbyes, 2 deadly complications, a slice from the shadows, couple galvanize, just everything. And then all those go really well with Judith. I'm going to be honest.
What does Judith do?
is it's a 5-mana 3/4. Whenever you cast instant or sorcery, you can either make a 2/2 that domes your opponent for 2 when it dies, or you can give the spell Death Touch and Lifelink. And the card is not great, to be honest. It's pretty bad in most decks. But I was confident that in this deck, it'd be, great. It's like the perfect deck, infinite removal, easy to survive until then. And even at its absolute best, it was like a solid uncommon, really. It didn't feel like a bomb rare. It didn't ever take over a game. It like made a 2/2 a couple times, and that was about it. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, honestly. The real overperformers in this deck were Lamplight Phoenix and Sir Conrad the Grim, both just really very good cards that, do a lot of work anytime they hit the board.
Yeah, looks like a solid deck. What rank did this trophy in?
Top of Platinum, bottom of Diamond. I'm still grinding my way up to Mythic on this season, so.
Very nice. Yeah, looks legit. I was on the train that like Rakdos is practically unplayable, but it seems like you have a ton of good pieces here.
I mean, you need a lot. This is like the pretty good Rakdos. It obviously it could be better. It can always be better. But I had multiple on-color rares. I wheeled a long goodbye, right? Like I was definitely the only black drafter at the table. And, it worked out. But at the same time, it did not feel as powerful as some of the other decks I've had in this format.
Yeah. What are your worst 3 cards in this deck?
Worst 3 cards in this deck? Definitely Unscrupulous Agent. I was quite a bit higher on that card initially. I have fallen a decent bit. It just doesn't really perform all that well. And then probably the Shady Informants. They're all conditionally good and they lined up well in certain times, but that and the Macabre Reconstruction just did never feel great, honestly.
Yeah. Yep. So Slimy Dual Leech, not one of the worst. You heard it here first, boys.
I mean, to be fair, it goes well with some of the other stuff. And when they just like have no creatures ever, having a 3/4 Death Toucher is okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I meant Rot Farm Mortarpede. I don't know why I said Slimy Dual Leech. Slimy Dual Leech is solid. Slimy Dual Leech is solid.
Dual Leech isn't too bad. The Mortarpede, yeah, that is a little sketchy. Two extracted confession is enough. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, a 3/4 is like pretty massive, I think. So
yeah, no. 3-mana 2/2s are just good enough in this format, apparently.
Yeah. Yep. Seems very good. Would love to see some games and stuff. And yeah, seems cool.
Well, how about your deck?
I went Boros and F&M. Drafted with Roby and Andrew. They can't be here tonight. They're busy. So I went Boros. I played against Andrew in game 1 and barely got there. And then ended up 3-0. So I had just a bunch of random Boros stuff with a couple really good rares. I had Wojek Investigator. That's a card I can like almost never seem to get past when it's resolved on me. Like I almost never win the games that I play against Wojek Investigator. That's the
4 toughness is so much.
Flying Vigilance. Vigilance is huge.
Yeah.
And then it gets to randomly investigate sometimes, like when your opponent has more cards in hand than you at the beginning of your upkeep, which you can like gain by like playing shock and stuff after you untap and things like that. But I also had 3 Person of Interest, which was really good when I just went Person of Interest, Person of Interest, Person of Interest. Okay. Like it's almost unbeatable when you just chain them.
You just go so wide with the menace, yeah.
Yeah. They just had bigger stuff and I would just, swing with everything. I had 19 dudes and 4 non-dudes. My 4 non-dudes were just 2 shocks, 1 of the suspicious detonation. That's the 5-mana deal 4, can't be countered, or it costs 3 less if you sack the artifact this turn. And then I had like what's that card called? Fuss and
Fuss and Bother. You can put a 1/1 counter on all your attacking creatures, or you can make 3 1/1 Thopters and Surveil 3.
I think it's Surveil 2, but yes. It was very good.
Yeah.
It was Fuss was just like insane with 19 dudes. Like if I had 3 dudes and they would, oftentimes there'd be a head on board, right? And so they would feel like they needed a block, and then I just Fuss, put counters on all my dudes, and like kill their dudes.
Yeah, Fuss Bother is definitely one of the cards that's been overperforming both like in the statistics and then just like every time it's played against me, I just like get blown out by it completely.
Yeah.
Card's a lot better than I thought it was going to be.
And then the 3/1/1 flyers was also like pretty good once. I only did that one once, but it was like boards were
it's never your
relatively
plan A, but it's a backup plan. Yeah.
I played against like basically a deck like yours, like a Rakdos removal deck.
Yeah.
And he just had like 1 dude, and I had 1 dude, and he's like just constantly killing all my dudes, right? And then I just like, I'll make 3/1/1s, like, and then I +2/+1 to all of them and hit him for a ton. So
that'll do it. Yeah.
Yep. It wasn't quite lethal, but it was 1 away. But then at that point, I had 4 flyers, and he had 1 flyer that he suspected. So it was like, kill all 4 of my flyers or lose next turn. And yeah, that's hard to do.
For sure.
Red Herring was like surprisingly very good in this deck. Defense Traded Phantom was probably my worst card. That's the 4/3 disguise guy flyer.
Yeah, I have been impressed by him.
I didn't have a deep sideboard pool, but I did side that out sometimes. I put Due Diligence in the mirror, and it was like very good.
I'd be tempted to main deck Due Diligence here, honestly.
I thought about it. I just really didn't want to reduce my creature count unless I felt like I had to.
You're already so high on creatures, though.
Yeah.
Why?
Yep.
What about Due Diligence decks with like 14 creatures,
Really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was like a super aggressive Boros deck, and I was like, Due Diligence.
I always like bringing it out of the sideboard in 3-game series just because I know what I'm up against and what I like need to look out for, right? Because like if I'm playing against a black X deck, Due Diligence is like really bad because they have all that can't be countered, like kill you. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
And then so I'm more comfortable with it out of the board usually, but it was very good. It was very good. And I also had Unyielding Gatekeeper, which is the 1 and a white 3/2 that has disguise for 1 and a white. And when you turn it face up, you can exile their thing and give them a 2/2 or bounce your thing.
I think it flickers your thing, right?
Yeah, flickers it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I use it to flicker my thing exclusively. I use it to flip some dudes. And I also used it to negate a Lightning Helix.
Oh, that's sweet.
And make a Thopter at the same time.
Which, like if you blink a person of interest, that's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah. I did the Gadget Technician. And then I just, one time you only had like 1 dude out, it was a 1/3, and I had 2 Morph guys, right? And so I just flipped my Morph guy and killed his 3/1. There's 1/3.
Yeah. That's better.
I mean, yeah, it's like a little bit of a mana save. Got to flip 2 guys and threaten with more damage, Yeah,
no, that's sweet.
Yeah, deck was good. The 2 shocks were like very necessary. I felt like they helped a ton. Would have probably wanted to have maybe 1 more like cheap removal spell, and the games would have maybe been slightly easier.
I don't know. Roby would disagree with you. Apparently, shock is bad.
Yeah, Roby told me this entire deck was bad, so shows what he knows.
Really? Boros good.
Yep, Boros good. I mean, that's all you got to do. Play Boros. I did really like On the Job. That's a +2/+1 to everything and lets you investigate. I think it it's kind of a trick because people see those cards as like a game ender, but like you can fire them off to get some beneficial trades in a token sometimes, and it's fine, like a clue, right? Like,
I mean, sure, but it is 4 mana.
If you like trade up with 1 dude survives, and you get a clue, like that's a pretty big swing.
For 4 mana.
Right. It is 4 mana, but you keep board, which is like,
sure,
to me, one of the most important things that my deck needed to do specifically.
I mean, you go very wide, you have a lot of creatures, and you have flyers. It's like, if there's a deck that it's good in, it's here, right?
Yeah, that's true. Griffnot Tracker was fine. Yeah, the deck was solid. Yeah, 3-0. So,
very nice
games. All right, next up, we're going to talk about some 17 lands data. And we're going to start off with color pairs and like the win rates. And right now, like I'm on the train, like I've been playing maybe not a ton, but like quite a bit. And I'm really struggling with like black based decks. And now the data's starting to get kind of fleshed out, you know? And it does look like most black based decks are like kind of not where you want to be. So Demir has like a 52.6 win rate, Rakdos 53.5, Golgari 54.5. Then Orzhov has a 56.8, so that's a big jump. But the average two color win rate is 57.3. And the only two decks that top that win rate are Boros and Selesnya. So a lot of people are playing Boros that also have 17 lands. And Boros has a 60.7 win rate, which is just through the roof.
Boros in this set is very strong. Yeah.
Boros has been played and in more games than the top other two decks combined, and it has more wins than the top other two decks combined, like two color decks.
Yeah, good players are drafting Boros.
Yep, and absolutely. I think that's a trend. I think white is like hands down the best color in the format.
I think it's by like a not insignificant margin either.
Right.
Like Novice Inspector is an absolutely nuts common. The makeshift binding is very good. The detective, the 2/2 that gains flying, is great. The uncommons are good. It's just all of the white stuff is very efficient, gives you a lot of value. It's aggressive. Like it's everything you want in a color.
The one that makes a 2/2 is like right up there with Novice.
Oh yeah,
to me.
Absolutely.
There's so deep at common and uncommon. Like the unicorn is insane. The 1/1 flying lifelinker is insane. Like there's just lots of very, very good cards in white. And then black is kind of a trap where at least I'm getting sucked into it because like there's all this removal, but the removal just doesn't do anything when all their cards are doing more than one thing.
Yeah.
And I think black doesn't have the card advantage engine that it needs unless you get it at like rare.
I mean, you can sometimes do like some things with like Grixis to get some card advantage, but it just takes so much work and it kills your mana and it doesn't end up really being worth it. Yeah. Like you can get there. I got there with a couple black decks, but yeah, at both of those tables, I know for a fact I was the only black drafter at the table based off what I was wheeling. I was like, I had packs where I wheeled multiple removal spells in black that were like pretty premium. And it's like, so I'm the only black drafter. Okay.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that is the only point you really want to be in black. It's a little bit like green in Lord of the Rings. Like, you can very rarely get a good green deck, but it takes a lot.
Yep. And so two color, based off the statistics, is pretty much where you want to be. The only thing that has a higher win rate than two color is monocolor. But there's not a ton of data on that, so like grain of salt that, right? But mono white has a 66% win rate, which is absurd. And mono
white plus splash has a 61% win rate too. So it's like mono white is where you want to be.
Yeah. And then mono black has a 25% win rate, 25.8, which is laughable.
Especially since this is among 17 lands users, right? So this is people who are like good, they're drafting well. Well over a 50% average, and that's what we end up with.
Yes. It just can't be done. It just can't be done.
Well, now that if you're saying it can't be done, I don't know. I might have to try it.
Yeah, well, if you get a mono black trophy deck, I will be thoroughly impressed. And I think like you can do it because like no one's touching it, right? Like black is just untouched in a lot of pods.
I'm about to send 10,000 gems down the toilet, forcing black every draft.
Yep, do it.
It'll all be worth it.
Splash card, like splashing is often not good, except in Selesnya, where it barely lowers the win rate from 58.3 to 57.6. Most other decks, read all other combinations, lose percentage points when you're splashing. So, but three color decks also, there's two specifically three color decks that have a fairly high win rate, and that's Bant, which is green, white, blue, has a 56.3, and Teamer, which is red, green, blue, that has a 55.1. So it's fine to splash in those decks. And they're both based out of Simic. So I think Simic is where you want to be splashing.
Green has a lot of good fixing in the set. If you're going to splash, you got to be base green.
Yes. And
the other thing to consider is that 17 lands considers a splash to be 3 cards or less, I believe. It's either 3 or 4. So it does consider it to be a multicolor deck fairly quickly.
Yes.
So these are light splashes, and they're still lowering the win rate.
Yep. And then with Simic, I think one of the key cards that enables Simic, besides all the green stuff that fixes, is like the 3/2 detectives on 2. This is just from my experience, so I could be wrong. But the 3/2 defender detectives for 2 are just so good at blocking. They just are genuinely so. They block until like turn 5.
I mean, yeah, they can like trade. I don't know. I haven't been super impressed with them.
I've only been impressed with them in my like all the colors doing everything piles, where I'm just based on
That's
a Simic and I'm doing like I just want to get to late game by any means necessary type
Yeah,
decks.
the Simic Uncommon Repulsive Mutation has been like better than most rares in the set for me. That card is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's kind of like the promise that was like given to us last set, where if you like counter their spell and cascade, you just win the game.
Yeah,
It's like that, right? Like you counter their spell and you make your dude bigger, like you just win, right?
but you can also just like put 8 counters on a random flyer.
Right.
Like someone did that to me earlier, and I was like, oh, okay, yep, I guess I lose.
Yeah. Yep. That seems pretty good. Flyers have been very good, I feel like, in this format.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah. Very annoying
for
to
sure.
deal with.
There's a lot of just efficient on-rate flyers and very cheap ways to buff them, or like all the combat tricks in the set investigate, so it is like really hard to justify blocking when they have open mana and cards in hand, and it like definitely looks like they have something, but sometimes you have to and then you just get blown out.
Yep. Yeah. I watched some draft videos and it seemed like a combat trick decided the game more often than not.
Yeah. No, I do think combat tricks are better in this set than in a usual set, partially because Investigate is stacked onto like all of them, and partially because Ward makes it a little bit easier to justify going in on it.
Yep. Yep. Combat and because like this set is like really so mana intensive that people are just often tapped out. Like
For sure.
a lot of the game, they're just tapped out.
No, I remember I've had so many drafts where up until like turn 7 or 8, I've used all of my mana every turn.
Yes.
Because there are so many things to do with your mana.
Yes, and there are some decks that you'll be on turn 10 still using every bit of mana that you have.
Absolutely.
Like, which is insane. It's insane. You're just doing stuff, bruh. You're just doing stuff.
Hey, the Wizards was like, people want to play more Magic, so we're just going to have more and more game actions. This is the way to fix it.
Yeah, there's a lot of game. There's so many lines in this format. We talked about that last episode, that it's like, you know, you have 2 face down guys, you flip those, you add to the board. Do you stay back on defense? Do you attack their life total? You know what I mean? Like,
when do you kill the face down creature? It's
that's
like this guy had one face down creature and he just hadn't flipped it for a while and he'd had the mana. And I was like, I'm just going to binding it while he's tapped out. And it was Aurelia's Vindicator. And I was like, I am really glad I killed that.
Yeah.
Like,
yep. And yeah, it's really hard to like decide which face down guy you want to play because you often have so many options. Like the first one you play often becomes unfairly targeted. And then like now that we know that, like you kind of play your best one second. So like that one gets, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's kind of
there's definitely some mind games.
Yep. Yeah, I'm struggling the most of like which line do I take? Am I the beatdown or not? It's kind of hard to find out in this format with so many buffs and stuff running around.
And then the other thing is like some of the aggro decks have so much grind because they have so many clues. Like I've had a number of like red white hyper aggressive decks where I also had the removal spell that makes a clue if it dealt excess damage. So I was like playing aggressive threats, killing theirs, but I also just made 3 clues randomly. And then all of a sudden, even though he like quote unquote turned the corner, I still had 3 cards to draw later. And I became the beatdown. You know, I went from the deck playing 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop to, okay, sure, I'll outgrind you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those weird things where it's like, there isn't necessarily a set beatdown. It's just like grindy value, even in your aggro decks.
Yep. So yeah, that's something I'm still wrestling with is like, when do I beat? When do I protect? But
it's definitely weird.
We'll figure it out. Okay, next up we have our just top, 10 to 15 improvement when drawn cards on 17 lands. What's number 1, Joel?
For improvement when drawn, we have Izoni, Center of the Web. It's the 6 mana green black rare that you can collect evidence. I think it's 6. Is it 6?
I believe so. It might be 4.
Yeah, it might be 4. You have to sacrifice 4 tokens, I know. But anyway, you make a couple 2/1s with Menace and Reach, and Izoni herself has Menace and Reach.
It is
and 4. You can also do this whenever you attack. So if you ever play this and attack with it, you will, and you have stuff in your graveyard, which is kind of a given. You're going to win the game.
Yep, and sometimes you don't even have to do that. Like sometimes you just have to play it and it dies and you still win the game. Because you leave behind 2/1 Menace Reach spiders.
For sure. The card is very good.
Yes. Yep, it's busted. And then next up we have Ezram, Agency Chief, which is Sphinx's Revelation on a stick, which is
No. I think Ezram is the 5-mana white, blue that makes 2 clues, and you can
You're right.
sacrifice a clue to have it gain hexproof, lifelink, or vigilance until end of turn.
Yes, it's the 5/5 flyer.
And it's a 5-mana 5/5 flyer. So
yeah, that card is almost impossible to deal with, and especially since black's so bad, which is like the best way to deal with it with that sacrifice spell, right?
the edict, yeah.
Yeah, and so it's very good and hard to deal with. Then we have Aurelius Vindicator and Vein Ripper. The Vindicator is the one you just talked about. We can exile things for when you flip it face up. Vein Rippers ward sack a creature. Whenever a creature dies, you drain them for 2.
Including itself.
And yeah, which is so you're getting at least 4 drain off of it if they just kill it instantly.
And it's also a 6/5 flyer. Yeah.
Yes. So it hits once, then they kill it. That it did 10 damage. That's just insane.
Yeah, for sure. After that, we have Teysa, Opulent Oligarch, and Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. Both just really bomb me 2-color rares. Rakdos is going to draw you 2 cards every turn, or they sacrifice a couple things. Teysa is the 3-mana where if you dealt damage, you get a clue on the end step, and then you get, whenever you sacrifice a clue, you get a 1/1. And whenever I play with this card, I have been bluffing incredibly hard. I will attack my 1/2, my Novice Inspector, into their 2/2 with nothing back, and then they never block. And second main, I play Teysa. I investigate on the end step. Next turn, I make a bird, and you just spiral from there. So my biggest thing with that card is always go for the bluff, especially on Arena. People don't just make you have it. They will just be like, "No, I'm not blocking."
Yeah, especially if they're 2/2s face down and something that they potentially care about, right?
Exactly. If it's just something that you think they're going to block with, it's an obvious trade, then maybe you don't go for it. But I have been aggressively going for it, and I have yet to be punished a single time. So
I think it's good to get those buffs out of the way early because they just face you at the end of the game when you don't see it coming.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely in the boat, especially in this set with so much removal running around, of just use your combat trick whenever you can. You get a pseudo 2-for-1, even if it's a kind of crappy creature they have. Just use it. It's just get it out of the way. Yeah, they all pretty much replace themselves anyway.
I'm more about the defensive end of it. Is block the 1/2 with your 2/2 and make them use it on the 1/2. Especially if you're not the beatdown, to just slow down their entire...
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, I'm definitely more in the camp of calling bluffs as well.
Yes.
I agree. I'm just also in the camp of making the bluffs.
Yes. Best of both worlds, some would say.
Oh, absolutely.
Next up, we have Tolsimir. That's the 3/2 that makes the 5/5 wolf in white-green, and Vanifar, the one that lets you cloak cards from your hand at combat. That's green-blue. It's just all of these 2-color mythics just seem very good.
Yeah, no, if you're gonna splash, you should be splashing for creatures like these, honestly. Because if you notice, these are all creatures until our next one, which is Cryptic Coat, which cloaks something and it makes a creature. Right?
Yep.
You notice all these top 10 immediately add to the board and then spiral out of control quickly.
Yes. And Cryptic Coat has just been insane too. It's just an unbeatable engine. The black removal decks just cannot deal with it. There's nothing they can do.
Yeah. No, many people have joked that it's we have True Name Nemesis at home, right? Can't be blocked. Recursive Value Engine just does so much. It's cards are beating.
Yep. And we have Argris Cost, Spirit of Justice. What's that one?
That's the Boros. It's 2 red and a white. It's a 2/4 Vigilance double strike. Whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may suspect up to 1 target creature. And then if that creature is already suspected, you exile it instead. So when it enters, you can suspect something. Then when you attack with it, you can just exile it. Or you can suspect itself so that it's really hard for them to block it, because it's also a 2/4 double strike vigilance, right?
Yes.
So there's just a lot of good things you can do with the card. It's an efficient creature. And, if you ever attack with it, it's removal spell on a stick. And then, you just win from there.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one in play at all yet. So
it is a mythic rare, right?
Yeah.
But every time I've seen it, it has been very good, though.
Yep. And then next up, we have our first non-creatures with...
Non-real creature. Cryptic Coat counts as a creature.
Well, yeah, we're after Cryptic Coat, right? Yeah. Cryptic Coat's a creature. Yeah. Urgent Necropsy.
Yep. This is the 2 black-green that can blow up an artifact, creature, enchantment, and planeswalker based off the evidence you collect for it.
Yep. And hide in plain sight. That was kind of surprising.
Honestly, I didn't think when I first saw it that this card would be all that good, but now that I think about it, you're disguising things so often anyway, and this digs 6 deep, I think. So it effectively draws you 2 cards and then puts them into play, disguised, right? So 4 mana, draw 2 and play them, and you're getting like 10, like 7 mana worth of value for 4, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, and it's also cloaking instead of just disguising, which is a pretty decent upside. You can turn it face up for the mana value instead if that's better for some reason.
Yep.
Or if the creature doesn't have a disguise.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
And it can just be a land. Like doesn't matter which 5 cards you look at. If they're all land, you still get 2/2/2s. Like for 4.
Yeah.
Just
it cannot whiff.
Yes, which is solid.
For sure. And it also goes to collect evidence because it's a sorcery. So it's immediately in your graveyard if you need to collect evidence for something. So
Yep. And then we have we have some other cards, but the one I'm most surprised about is Niv Mizzet Guild Pack is up here with the 8.4 improvement when drawn. It's the
I am convinced that this is based off the stats of when you draw this late, it's good, and that's like skewing the data some. And then also we have a decent sample size, but smaller. Like I have yet to see this card do anything ever.
I've played decks with it. It's very good. Like you just have to have 1 or 2 multicolored things, and you draw 2 cards. And
you have to resolve your Wooburg card and then go to combat next turn.
You do have to do that. But to be fair, it is a 6/6, which is like very hard to deal with. Not a ton of things can kill a 6/6.
Maybe it's because I'm drafting bad black decks that can kill 6/6s very easily. But I don't know. I remain unconvinced.
I don't think the 5-color do everything deck loses to the mono black kill stuff deck very often, honestly.
I've beat the 5-color do everything deck a number of times with the mono black deck because I just go under it. So if I'm drafting that kind of deck, I'm typically pairing it with red and just going fast, or with white and just going fast. I don't think you can be a mono black grindy deck in this format ever.
Oh wow. Well, we might have to have a Gruul. We might have to have a grudge match. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, those are the rares and mythics that you should be looking out for. Also, Maverick Thopterus is an uncommon list card that is on there right underneath Niv Mizzet, which is improvise, and it makes 2 1/1s. It's a red-blue card.
2 1/1s with flying that are artifacts randomly. Yeah.
Yes.
No, it just does everything.
Yep. And then next we sorted our commons by game in hand win rate. And as you suspect, it's full of white-red cards for the top 7 spots. Novice Inspector, Makeshift Binding, Inside Source, Dogwalker, Person of Interest, Shock. And then On the Job is up there. That's that +2/+1 thing we were talking about that investigates for 4. But notably, it does have a negative improvement on drawn win rate. But I think that just speaks to how good Boros is and what kind of things you want to be doing in Boros. That On the Job is up there just because you just want to go wide, right? Like, if you're going wide, you're probably playing cards similar to On the Job and you're winning more games.
Yeah, in the right synergistic deck, it can be good, but it doesn't just go everywhere. Yep.
Yes. And then next up, we have 2 green cards in Bite Down on Crime and Loxodon Eavesdropper. I've been pretty impressed by both of those cards. They've been pretty good.
Yeah, for sure. They both just generally are good on-rate, solid cards.
Yep. Nervous Gardener fixing is just very
even late game. Playing Nervous Gardener, because it if I remember right, it gets basic land type, right?
Let me double check.
There's one that gets basic land type, and there's one that doesn't. Anyway, but whenever you can get a Surveil land off the one that gets basic land type, and then you play a Surveil land, and it just feels like card advantage.
Yes, it is basic land type.
Yeah, it just, if you have the Surveil land, I feel like that card goes way up in value because you effectively get a preordain or consider kind of effect off of your creature, and you get a land out of your deck that yeah.
And 1 mana to flip up is just so good.
I've had a number of times when I had the green-white uncommon, and they thought I couldn't possibly have something to flip up, and then I flipped it up for 1, put a counter on it, put a counter on the green-white guy, went to blocks, and just blew them out. Yeah.
That's crazy. Yep. And then after that, we have Hard Evidence, which is the 1 mana 0/3 that makes a clue sorcery. Makes a 0/3 crab.
Yeah, it's a list card. Yeah.
Galvanize, Fanatical Strength, I've been very impressed with. That's the +3/+3 and trample for 2 at green common.
The trample is very relevant. There are so many 1/1s running around. Is it has the 1/1 Thopters. Boros has 1/1 dogs everywhere. there's just a lot of cheap chump blockers that you end up using to stabilize, and then all of a sudden you give your big guy trample and they're dead.
Yep. I think that's probably the best combat trick in the format, in my opinion.
Probably. I've been liking Auspicious Arrival in Boros.
Yeah.
Just because cheap makes a clue, but that one might be better. Yeah.
Offender at large is a little bit surprising on here. That's the disguise guy that when he turns face up gives something else +2/+0.
Yeah, if I had to guess, it's because it pairs really well with Dogwalker, and these decks really want Dogwalker, right?
Yep.
They try to like just block the 1/1s, clear the board out, stop you from going wide. All of a sudden, you turn it face up. Your 1/1 is trading with theirs, right?
Yep.
But generally speaking, I have not liked that card. I was surprised to see it here.
Yep, same. I think it pushes a lot of damage too. Like when you flip it face up, and all of a sudden they're taking an extra, 4 damage from it. It's kind of a big.
It is a fairly large card to flip up. It's not like the green ones, but it is still pretty big.
Yeah, I believe it's a 4/5.
It's a 5/4, I think. But yeah, right? Maybe not. Might be a 4/5.
Offender at large.
Yeah.
It is a 5/4. Yeah, so that's 5 damage if they don't block it potentially. They just
which is pretty significant. Yeah.
Yes. And it happens on ETB too, which I found those cards that when they happen on ETB or turn face up are significantly.
Yeah, that is the biggest line of text that you don't pay attention to. That the blue-red guy happening on ETB or turning face up is such a huge upgrade. He makes a Thopter either way. Definitely a big deal.
Yep. And then after that we have Market Watch Phantom, which is the 2/2 that gains flying. Vengeful Creeper, which is the one that kills an artifact or enchantment. Tunnel Tipster, Auspicious Arrival that we already talked about. The Chase is on, and Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah, these are all those cards that are definitely very good early, right?
Yep.
Although the green guy that kills an artifact or enchantment has definitely it has a lot of grind. That is one that's definitely more late game. But other than that, good early.
Yeah, and there's just so many artifacts and enchantments that can really run away with the game with these cases being solved. And
sure.
the satchel, and sometimes just random value to just kill a random artifact. But there are cards that just say I win the red anthem, +1/+1 to everything.
Yeah, War Leader's Call. You just got to deal with it.
Yes. Yep. So the upside there is huge. And when you flip it, since white is so good, you flip it and you kill a makeshift binding to do surprise blocks and have a threat back that was worthy of makeshift binding. It's just I win.
Or whenever they makeshift binding a face down creature that turned out to be big, and then you effectively get to flip it up for free by killing the binding later. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I've been impressed with Vengeful Creeper as I've been playing, but it looks like black is not super highly represented here. There were a lot of black cards in the improvement when drawn when you sort by that. I think just black's overall win rate being so low, they don't make this list.
Yeah. As much as I want to cope that black is good in this set, it's really struggling.
I think if you're finding yourself struggling in this format, unless you open a Vein Ripper, a Rakdos, the guy that whenever a creature dies investigates, one of the Tesa, unless you open one of those very early, just ignore black and see what that does for you. See if that helps you. I know that's been helping me because I often see these removal spells. I'm how is this so late? The Edict, you know what I mean? And
that's the big thing that I run into is I see the removal spells and I'm this is such a good removal spell. I'm going to take it. Here's another one. I'm going to take it too. And then it just, it isn't really where you want to be most of the time.
But I think notably you can support that with rares, but you just have to so many cards 2-for-1 things that you have to be able to generate cards off of your removal.
You need to just survive until you get your rares. Because if you looked at both of my trophy decks that I 7-0'd with that were very black based, it was, oh look, oops, I have rares that win the game, and then removal, right? It's not just the removal.
Even uncommons like Sir Conrad is good enough to just be oh, my removal pile can still win the game.
Yeah, so when you have those kind of removal piles, you definitely have to support it with the stupid rares. Both of those decks I had, had things like Tesa, had things that, just absolutely took over the game when I played them. So it's not just the removal. You really need to back it up. And the reason I went into those colors in the first place were those rares. So.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's the way you have to do it. My best black-based decks I've started off with very good rares, too. So
our advice for you is to open good cards.
Yes, be good at opening packs and you'll be good at the format. And that's all you need to know.
Absolutely. Welcome to Play Boosters, everyone.
So I heard you went to Denver to play some Magic. How did that go?
Yeah, I went to the regional championship there. I scrubbed out of the main event, did not do well out there. I played some limited side events. I did great at the limited side events, but these were not like the 10K or anything. It was just, like the quick fire drafts, some of the ones that like started at a scheduled time, that kind of thing. I did not lose a limited match in Denver, which felt pretty good. I
Wow.
definitely played the new format and everyone else was reading the cards. And that, it's very telling that everyone else is like reading every card in the pack pretty conspicuously, and it's like, okay, I'll take this and pass. So.
Undefeated and limited in Denver. Not a claim many people can make.
I only played like 9 matches, I think. I did 3 drafts. So not like a huge sample size or anything, but it felt pretty good to go undefeated there after, getting absolutely demolished in the main event.
Very fun. Very cool. Did you any other cool stuff besides just playing Magic there, or?
Yeah, no, it was really cool. Meeting some people there, just like seeing faces that you like see on YouTube, that kind of stuff, like LSV, Nikolai Bolas, all that kind of thing. Young Dingo, there's all the creators are there. I definitely recommend going to, if they're ever in your area, like there's a Denver one, or not the Denver one, the Texas one coming up here in a little while, a couple months or so. I definitely recommend going to those. It's always a good time. There's a million events. Even if you don't qualify for the main event, it's just, honestly, it's a blast.
Yeah, I've always had fun. I try to go to one a year at least.
For sure. Yeah. No, there's actually a different one, not one of the DreamHack like regional championship ones. There's the Hunter Burton coming up. They're in spring break. I think it's March. And I'm going to be doing the limited high roller there. So if anyone's interested, you should definitely go to that. It'll be a pretty fun tournament. It's for charity. So yeah.
Yeah, sounds awesome. I'll have to see if my schedule lines up and see if I can make it. But yep, I think that's just about all we have. Any random advice you have for people that are still struggling in this format?
No, just probably avoid black, honestly. I think that's about it.
Follow your rares and your heart.
Mostly the rares. No insidious roots piles here.
Well, yeah, it's not been good for me. As bad as I wanted to be. It's not.
I pulled it off once, a single time, and even then, it was like the stuff around the insidious roots, not itself. So,
all right. Well, we'll catch you boys on the flippity flop.
see ya.